This is the story of love and unexpected pregnancy that blossoms when a 25-year-old American soldier, deployed to Iraq, shares a profound connection with a Russian female officer he meets there. Before you watch the video, please hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It's a huge help to us. In the late summer of 2004, as the heat wave was at its peak, Mike Johnson was, as usual, drenched in sweat, running drills on the base. He was 25, a young man who had enlisted in the US Army after graduating from college with a degree in English literature. Hardly getting a taste of civilian professional life. Truthfully, he harbored big dreams of working in global trade or international interpretation. That's why he'd excelled in his English studies and had a particular fondness for language. His US Army unit was fairly standard. But one day, when a call for volunteers for a deployment to Iraq for reconstruction support came up, he submitted his application, driven by curiosity, a sense of duty, and an instinctive feeling that he'd regret missing this chance. His parents and friends tried to talk him out of it, citing the danger, but Mike had already made up his mind. Ultimately, his strong communication skills and aptitude for liaison work were recognized during the selection process, and he was added to the deployment roster. As his departure neared, Mike felt confident in the English he'd mastered in school. But the thought of actually going to the Middle East, a land where the scars of war were still fresh, made him nervous and his heart pound. Even with excellent English, he anticipated needing a different level of communication with local civilians who spoke no English and with US or coalition forces from diverse backgrounds. Excitement, fear, and the question, "Can I really do this?" swirled in his head. When Mike arrived in Iraq, the midsummer sun beat down relentlessly. His unit was stationed near the Kurdish Autonomous Region, where American soldiers were engaged in reconstruction activities, as well as medical and cultural support. Though it was a hazardous area, the warm support and assistance offered by the US troops were a great source of strength for the local residents. Gazing at the dusty roads, Mike made a promise to himself. My job here isn't just to interpret or liaise. This will be a chance to truly connect with the people here and to understand America's role in the international community. His initial assignments primarily involved assisting technical officers working on construction projects with local Kurdish people, facilitating communication. In addition to his native English, Mike spent his nights studying basic Arabic phrases and Kurdish words. Their first meeting, about a month after Mike's deployment, a meeting was held to coordinate joint operations with soldiers from other nations within the coalition. It was there he saw a female officer from the Russian military contingent. With her light brown, almost blonde hair neatly tied up, she looked to be a lieutenant or captain. He soon learned her name was Eva Rostova, and she was a captain. Initially, his impression was just, oh, a Russian female officer, but as situations requiring liaison and translation between their units became frequent, they naturally began to converse. When Mike demonstrated his articulate English and knack for bridging communication gaps, Eva showed interest and struck up a conversation. "You handle these diplomatic talks very well. Where did you develop such an aptitude?" she asked, her English clear with a distinct Russian accent. "I majored in English literature back in the States, and I also did a student exchange program during college." "Ah, I see. But what made you volunteer to come here? You must have known it was dangerous," Eva asked, slightly puzzled. Many soldiers, especially those from different national forces, weren't fully aware of the specific motivations or the extent of other countries' involvement in Iraq's reconstruction. Mike explained the US government's commitment to helping Iraq recover from the ravages of war, and also shared his personal dream of being an interpreter and the experiential drive that brought him there. Eva nodded in understanding, and thereafter, Mike often found himself sitting next to her in meetings. Naturally, the two began to share not just work-related stories but also details about their hometowns, hobbies, and future plans. Growing closer, the land of Iraq was endlessly unfamiliar and perilous for them. Many soldiers, armed with rifles, ammunition, and body armor, remained constantly on edge. Paradoxically, this tension sometimes had the strange effect of forging strong bonds among soldiers. Facing unpredictable dangers, they had no choice but to rely on each other as fellow human beings. It was the same for Mike and Eva. They were both in their mid-20s, and when they conversed in English, they naturally noted the cultural differences, yet found a peculiar joy in discovering these distinctions. Eva, not knowing much about America, peppered Mike with questions not just about well-known foods but also about American traditions, regional cultures, and current pop music. Do Americans really celebrate Thanksgiving with such big family gatherings? Many do. Yes, it's a pretty big holiday, a time for family and, well, a lot of food, Mike would explain. I've seen it in movies, but never experienced it. I'd love to, someday. Understanding each other's cultures became a good way to soothe the loneliness felt in a foreign land. It was like a small oasis found in the middle of the desert. They began to cautiously share with each other the inner loneliness they couldn't easily confide in anyone else. However, the reality of an Iraq still at war was always tense. Although their base was considered relatively safe, the possibility of insurgent activity or terrorism could never be entirely ruled out. When they went out to survey areas for landmines, they had to be on high alert. One day, a meeting was scheduled with local Kurdish community leaders. Mike and several officers, including Eva in a joint convoy, set out in SUVs. After crossing barren hills and pushing through wind-whipped sand, they arrived at a dilapidated building where the meeting was to take place. The discussions inside, however, were crucial for regional reconstruction. In this meeting, Mike and Eva again showed the growing closeness, dependably supporting each other amidst the danger they felt every time they ventured out. They silently wished for each other's safety and shared an unspoken promise to face any trouble together. As these days continued, a subtle emotion, transcending camaraderie, began to sprout between them. However, both being soldiers, and from different nations, they couldn't rashly define or express this feeling. One night, under a desert sky glittering with stars, perimeter security continued at the base. Sentries were posted along the outer barbed wire fence, with a system in place for reporting any unusual signs via radio. Just when they thought it was another quiet night, a sudden explosion roared. Boom! Crash! A car bomb had detonated not far from the base's perimeter, an attempted terrorist attack by militants using a vehicle. With the sharp blast, an American soldier on guard duty collapsed. Wounded by shrapnel, the base immediately went on high alert and began to secure the scene. Mike, along with Eva, rushed from the operations center to the wounded soldier. Eva, also trained in emergency first aid and responsible for liaison with U.S. forces, was a key figure. Fortunately, the base's medical team responded quickly. Mike and Eva helped direct soldiers in the vicinity to safe zones or surveyed the surrounding terrain for potential secondary explosives. The injured soldier had lost consciousness but thankfully received prompt emergency treatment, improving his chances of survival. In that critical situation, Mike and Eva worked together in a capacity beyond mere translation or liaison. Mike simultaneously relayed information between the U.S. command and coordinated requests for support, while Eva communicated critical operational changes and soldier safety instructions to the relevant U.S. and Allied sections. In that desperate moment, they both clearly realized how precious the other's presence was. As the crisis subsided and the night deepened, Mike and Eva took a moment to catch their breath in a secluded rest area on the base. Their hearts still pounded as if adrenaline was continuously pumping. The echo of the explosion still seemed to ring in their ears. Mike quietly asked Eva, "Are you okay? You're not hurt?" "No, I'm fine. I'm all right, but we should probably stay alert, just in case." Silence hung between them for a while. When their eyes met, they felt a powerful emotion conveyed, stronger than any words. Why are our hearts racing like this? Is this feeling temporary, or is it real? All sorts of thoughts mingled. The experience of facing life and death together in a crisis had deeply connected them in a single instant. In that place, which for some might be just another theater of war, Each other's existence became a reason to endure the unpredictable tomorrows. Later that night, on the way back to their temporary quarters within the base, Eva suddenly said to Mike, "I hope we can get to know each other better during our remaining time here." Or maybe, even more than that. It was a confession Mike had somewhat anticipated. Yet, hearing it directly, his heart felt like it would burst. Different nationalities, and she was an officer, yet an affection that transcended all that existed between them. That night, they had already confirmed their feelings for each other, and with that quiet confession, they began a secret love affair. Their deployment in Iraq had a set duration, so there was no guarantee their happiness would last forever. Indeed, a few months later, Mike received orders to return to the United States, and Eva, due to personnel rotations within the Russian military, was also ordered back to her home country. The time they had spent together in Iraq, however brief, was passionate and intense. As the moment of parting approached, they could only bid farewell amidst great sorrow. "Let's definitely meet again someday. We have to keep in touch." "Yes, I'll definitely contact you. You take care and get back safely too." Promising to miss each other, they concluded their deployment. Mike returned to the US and began preparing for his discharge. He reconnected with many people and resumed a normal life. But a corner of his heart always held the image of Iraq's desert and Eva's smile. The first thing he checked when he turned on his computer was Eva's email. He didn't miss the short messages that came via instant messenger, reading messages that arrived in the early morning due to the time difference. Mike felt a small sense of relief that she hadn't forgotten him. While repeatedly pondering how they could truly meet again, after his discharge, Mike entered the job market. While looking into companies related to international trade or interpretation, he diligently continued to study languages. However, his real goal was to somehow go and meet Eva, thinking he needed to seize an opportunity like graduate school or a language program. He prepared day and night. A few months later, he finally made a decision. What if I just go to her? He had volunteered for Iraq. Now, a feeling urged him to take on another challenge. The fear that he would live with lifelong regret if he didn't act spurred his courage. When he contacted Eva, she had already re-established her military life back in Russia. Though she had a new assignment and was settling in, she still cherished her contact with Mike. When Mike told her he was coming to Russia soon, Eva was initially very surprised but soon, with a joyful voice, said that would be wonderful and asked if he could really make it. Arriving at a bustling Moscow airport, Mike, his head spinning from jet lag, rushed to meet Eva without even a moment to steady himself. Eva was living in officer's quarters, and for the weekend, she drove to the airport herself to pick him up. Seeing Eva again after only a few months, she still had that soldierly presence. However, her appearance in civilian clothes created a very different atmosphere from the military uniform he'd seen her in the Iraqi desert. "It's been too long. How did you decide so quickly? I just missed you. I wanted to start over from here." Their reunion was so intense it was tearful. Oblivious to the stares of people at the airport, they shared a tight embrace. Eva guided Mike to her apartment and suggested they start planning, step by step, what kind of life they could build together. Now not in Iraq, but here. During their reunion, which lasted several days, Eva made an unexpected confession. "I'm pregnant." Mike couldn't believe it, but memories of their last passionate night together before leaving Iraq resurfaced. The timing matched, and Eva said she'd recently had a checkup and confirmed the pregnancy. "Really? So, it's my child?" "Yes, it's your child. To be honest, I've spent the last few months agonizing over what to do about this." Excitement and fear were mixed in Eva's voice. Mike silently took her hand. It was sudden news, but strangely, deep in his heart, he had a strong intuition that this might be fate. And simultaneously, a sense of responsibility surged through him. Soon after, Eva quietly said, "I want to propose to you. Will you marry me?" Eva had proposed, something Mike felt he should have done. While it might not be uncommon for women to propose in some Western cultures, from Mike's cultural background, it was quite a surprising moment. He didn't hesitate. "I want to be with you too. My child, And you. I'll protect you both." With tearful smiles, they confirmed their decision and soon began preparing for a wedding. The two held a small wedding in the United States after Eva managed to arrange a transfer to a liaison role that allowed her to be based there for a period. A complex process facilitated by the unique circumstances of their service and relationship. Eva's family, though initially wary of the unfamiliar American, gradually opened their hearts after seeing Mike's sincerity and responsible attitude. Whatever language barriers remained, what mattered was their heartfelt union as a family. After a simple wedding, Eva received leave and consideration from her military superiors to go through her pregnancy. Mike could have returned to focus on his career, but instead immediately sought business opportunities in the US, his college major. His international network built in Iraq, and connections Eva had made through her military service became a small foundation. He initially tried to start a trading business, introducing unique American products to emerging markets and gradually building domestic and international connections. Instead of solely relying on past contacts, he negotiated with US companies online and worked to secure distribution channels. Capital and connections were scarce, but passion and diligence made up for the shortfall. As time passed and Eva's belly grew, the hospital let them hear their son's heartbeat. They were moved to tears. Mike felt an overwhelming emotion. "I'm really becoming a father," as if stepping into another world. And finally, on the day the child was born, as he paced anxiously outside the delivery room, praying, the first cry he heard left him speechless. Their son, as if symbolizing his parents' love that transcended borders, was a beautiful blend of their two nations. With Eva's eye color and Mike's facial contours harmoniously combined, the child was named Lucas. He also had a Russian middle name. But as life in America was their priority, he was officially registered with his American name. Thus, a new family began. As time went on, they welcomed their second and third children, another son, then a daughter. The second, Leo, and third, Sophia, arrived a few years after their first, bringing even greater joy and responsibility to Mike and Eva. Watching the children play, laugh, and chatter often made Mike, contrasting it with the harsh landscapes of the Iraqi desert, realize the miracles of life. Mike's trading business gradually found its footing. Initially, he rented a small office and imported specialty goods, electronics, and cultural products on a small scale. But he expanded by increasing his product lineup and finding reliable partners. Meanwhile, Eva, though she had demonstrated the capability for further promotion in her military career, flexibly balanced her service with the priority of caring for their 3 young children, eventually transitioning to a reserve role and then civilian life to focus on their family. Mike's work now involved regular travel between the US and various international partners. Sometimes, the whole family would travel together, visiting relatives or experiencing new cultures. When Eva visited new places, she'd laugh about how she had now somewhat adapted to various spicy foods she once found unfamiliar. She also learned bits of other languages, fluently speaking basic greetings. At such times, Mike would recall first approaching her in Iraq, speaking formally, and feel the passage of time. Their children, growing up, naturally absorbed the languages and cultures of the diverse heritage. Sometimes, at the American breakfast table, one might ask, "Mom, can I have blini instead of cereal?" Or while eating a sandwich. Another might ask, "What if we had this with some borscht?" Cute mixed cultural moments often unfolded at home. Their eldest son, Lucas, resembled his father in his linguistic talents, while their second son, Leo, like Eva, loved playing soldier, often brandishing a toy gun and shouting, "Attention!" The youngest daughter, Sophia, though still small, fearlessly followed her older brothers, radiating boundless curiosity. Mike and Eva cherished these small blessings of the bustling family life. Sharing laughter every day, Mike would sometimes sit alone at his desk late at night, reflecting on the past. His choice in 2004, at 25, to volunteer for the dangerous deployment to Iraq, if he had backed down out of fear then, his current happiness would not exist. The memory of surviving the bomb threat in Iraq together, sharing a brush with death, had forever changed his and Eva's lives. Borders, language, rank, culture, all these barriers were but small pebbles before love. The unique environment of the military, the backdrop of a global conflict zone, had connected them in an instant. And that bond did not break easily. The fact that a small connection, sprouted in the sandstorms of Iraq, eventually blossomed into a beautiful family was a miracle so profound that even Mike sometimes found it hard to believe. Mike and Eva's story beautifully illustrates how humans can rely on each other even in dangerous and difficult foreign lands. And how, by responding calmly even in urgent situations, connections can ultimately lead to love. War is terrible, and the reality of deployment always brings tension and fear. But the fact that human connection, the ability to share one's heart, can exist even amidst such conditions is deeply moving. Furthermore, their story reawakens us to the fact that life can flow in unpredictable directions. Mike might have become an ordinary English teacher or worked in a trading company in the US. Eva might have had a conventional military career, serving in her home country. But who could have imagined they would meet in Iraq, fall in love, have children, and form a family? They now enjoy the simple joys of daily life, moving freely between their home base in the US and their international connections. With their 3 children, the children, living as global citizens, of sorts, naturally absorb diverse cultural backgrounds, which has become a unique strength for them. When Mike has time, he teaches his children songs in different languages, and Eva sometimes makes Russian dishes for US military events or community gatherings, sharing a piece of her heritage. Such small exchanges and unions happen within one family, and that positivity radiates out to the world. Even if nationalities, languages, and cultures differ, if there is a sincere heart to understand and respect the other, love will surely blossom. Marriage is not an end but a new beginning. And Mike and Eva, too, grow by coordinating different perspectives in their daily lives and resolving unexpected conflicts. However, at their foundation, the life and death experience they shared in the middle of the Iraqi desert is rooted like a tree, giving them a solidity that doesn't sway in ordinary winds. Their children, when they meet their American grandparents, cheerfully greet them, "Hi Grandma, Grandpa, how are you doing?" and might use Russian phrases with Eva's family during video calls. Seeing this, Mike and Eva smile. Initially, it was just a small connection to comfort each other in lonely, unfamiliar Iraq, but now they have become a truly steadfast family. Mike often reminisces about his time in Iraq, saying, "Back then, it was just one of life's choices. But thinking about it, it turns out I was meant to meet my soulmate there. And to even start a family, life is truly unpredictable." Eva, too, sometimes looks at the children and confesses, "I never imagined this when I volunteered for that deployment. So, while I can never say that deployment and war are good things, I think our family proves that beautiful flowers can bloom even in such adverse conditions." The path they walked was by no means smooth. Nurturing love in the midst of the tragedy of war meant facing external prejudices and internal insecurities, among many other barriers. But ultimately, they were honest with each other and kept their commitment to be together until the end. The tense terrorist incident in Iraq terrified them, but it ironically became a major turning point, solidifying their feelings. And the reunion in a new country and the sudden news of pregnancy came as destiny, forging them into a strong couple. The journey after marriage wasn't always easy, like any couples, but they respected each other's cultural and linguistic differences, building bridges. After the children were born, those pure and adorable little beings infused their parents' world with greater meaning and responsibility. Now, they lead busy lives often involving international elements. But they say that as long as the family is together, they are happy anywhere. The connection discovered amidst the dangers of the Iraqi desert has now borne abundant fruit, becoming a small family enterprise that operates on a global stage and a community of love. Mike and Eva's story is like a small fairy tale showing the greatness of love that transcends limits and borders. Behind the simple fact that they, soldiers from different countries who met in a dangerous region, eventually married, formed a family, and pioneered a new future. Lie countless tears, laughter, and courage. The image of sharing human warmth amidst danger and hardship, maintaining composure even in urgent situations, and finally connecting everything with a love that transcends all, certainly serves as an inspiring lesson. Through this story, we can learn that although we don't know where life will take us, if we live with sincerity, we will eventually meet the people we most need and get a chance to be together. The sight of their family, relying on each other and weathering any storm the world throws at them, gives us great hope and inspiration as we live our lives today.